Hello and welcome to the first part of this multi-part series, probably 5 or 6 parts of this Twitch talk I had about immersion and immersion in video games. So, if you are a normal viewer of this channel, sorry, this will only be in English, but if you are new here and this is the first time you stumbled upon this channel, then I'm sorry. Probably in the future, the rest of the videos will always be in German. But there are some special videos that maybe will be also in English. Okay, this is the first part, this is introduction, and I will release over the next videos the following parts. Have fun! Und damit hallo und willkommen zurück zu Pretty Old Pixel und heute einem ganz besonderen Stream. Ihr seht ja schon, ich bin nicht alleine, ich habe einen Gast und der Verträglichkeit wegen, damit wir uns alle verstehen können, ist der Rest des Streams in Englisch. Darum bitte ich euch, Fragen und so weiter in Englisch in den Chat. Falls ihr es mit Englisch nicht ganz hin könnt ihr das auch in Deutsch schreiben. Ich versuche das dann während der Laufzeit sozusagen zu übersetzen. Aber ich kann nichts versprechen. So, okay, the rest of this talk, I guess, is in English, and I'm very happy to welcome Marta Haggis-Burridge to the stream. And how are you?
I am good, thank you. Yes, greetings from the Netherlands. Got the name right. It's a good job.
Yeah, I was practicing beforehand.
It's good. Yeah, no, it's good. Very close. Yeah, it's Matt Haggis-Burridge. It's all good. Yes.
Yeah. So, this evening will be mostly you and me talking about immersion, talking about examples of immersion, talking about games, talking about our youth, nostalgia and stuff like that, but also talking with you, the chat, about the games where you mostly feel immersed. And to do that, not me, Marta decided to write a short paper to get us 4 categories, so we can talk about more focused and on a same base of knowledge and meaning. But before we start with that, I'd like to Marta introduce himself. So I have a picture of this wonderful university, and
Yes.
I'm a little bit envious because my university was a gray concrete block. That looks really lovely.
So hello to everybody watching online. I'm Matta Haggis-Burridge. I am a professor of creative and entertainment games at Breda University of Applied Sciences, which from this point onwards I'll be pronouncing as BUas, which is the slightly weird acronym we have for it. So Breda University of Applied Sciences, it is in the Netherlands. It's kind of in the sort of southwestish region. If you know where Rotterdam is, you're in the right kind of ballpark for that. If I get my bike, I can cycle to Belgium from nearby my house. Breda University of Applied Sciences is it's an applied science university, so you get bachelor and master degrees from it. We're actually just starting up a doctoral program with research into video games, with our first people going through that next year, which I'm in charge of making happen. So that's very exciting stuff. It's rated as one of, if not the top university in mainland Europe to study video game development. And I was very honored to be invited to come work here as a senior lecturer, then the head of design and production, and now the professor of creative entertainment games. And I've been here for 12 years now, so I should be able to speak much better Dutch than I do, but unfortunately, the Dutch are so damn good at speaking English that it's very difficult to learn. You say the slightest bit of things in Dutch, and they go, "Should we just switch to English? That'd be easier." And I'm like, "Oh yes, okay." All right.
Please switch to English. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I've got the academic side of my life, but I've been playing video games for around 40 years now, and I've been professionally involved with the development of video games for over 20 years now. I started off making games using, well, if you go back really, really old school, I did some tiny little bits of programming in hexadecimal. I think back on the Spectrum, but it was
Cheating,
like
right?
literally, yeah,
Editing
very,
save
very
games?
yeah, that was very old school, but yeah, I wouldn't call that proper development by any means. I did start making proper games that I could actually release out using Flash. So if you remember Macromedia originally, and then Adobe Flash software, I started using Flash at the end of the 1990s and really started making stuff professionally 2000, 2001. And I made Flash games and animations for 7 years, running my own company when I was living in the UK and doing my PhD at the same time. So two of the most time-consuming things you can do a PhD, start your own business, do them both at the same time, because
Yeah.
that's just sensible, isn't it?
Yeah. I did the same, so yeah, I can compare.
Yeah, exactly. The first game I made was actually quite inspired by games of the 1980s. You may remember a series of games called Daley Thompson's Decathlon. And these were sports games. Daley Thompson was a celebrity kind of sportsman from the UK. And these were sports games. And you used to have a joystick and you'd like wiggle it left and right, left and right, left and right, left to make the character run faster,
Yeah.
and then press a button to make them like do a pole vault or something. So the first game I ever made actually was arm wrestling with Sigmund Freud. And I got Sigmund Freud, like a picture of Sigmund Freud's head, and I got like a little flap for his mouth, and he'd like taunt you with like psychoanalysis babble, whilst I had it was Mars, Bringer of War, from Holst to the Planet. Boom, 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 dum, da 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 dum, dum, da 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 dum, dum, playing in the background, and all we had to do was hammer two buttons, and there'd be like this arm which would move left and right depending on how fast you were moving it, and you have to try and beat him. And there were different difficulty settings, and that was my first ever game that I released. Like I say, that was over 20 years ago. After I did that for 7 years, I then went to work for Electronic Arts. And so I worked for Criterion, the Criterion studio in Guildford in the UK. And I was a designer, kind of level design, narrative design side of things for Burnout Paradise. So Burnout Paradise, obviously, racing game, smashing up your friends, open world, quite revolutionary for its time. I was the person who came up with the idea for the co-op online play. We already obviously had an online mode for racing, but I had actually forgotten about this. But one of the producers came to me. I saw him at GDC about 5 years ago. He said, "Oh God, I remember being in the room when you said, in the team we're having so much fun just playing around with each other. Why don't we make that a mode?" And I was like, "Oh, that was my idea, was it? Oh, good." So I'd forgotten that, but apparently I was the person who came up with the online co-op mode, where you're just like jumping your car over each other and doing little challenges and stuff. So, but yeah, I do remember definitely having so much fun with the team, just racing around and just doing jumps and flips over each other and things like that. So, yeah, I was involved with that. I became lead campaign designer and writer for Aliens vs Predator with Rebellion Studio in Oxford. And I became a lead designer on a game that probably nobody else knows, called PDC World Championship Darts Pro Tour. It was a darts game, and we had the motion controls like the Wii Motion Plus and stuff, and doing this to throw a dart at the screen. And it was actually really fun to work on. I know it sounds like ridiculously obscure, but sometimes I'd seen darts, but I'd never played a darts video game before. I really got into it. It was so much fun to work on. The people I was working with were absolutely lovely. PDC World Championship Darts Pro Tour, and I got to write all the script for it. And I was there with the recording booth and helping these expert BBC sports commentators doing all these recordings, these snippets, and I watched like 25 hours of them speaking and doing this commentary to get the voices right for these characters, get the script really good for when they went to the studio. Loads of fun. Since then, I went over to what was called NHTV, now called BUas University, in the Netherlands, and I still do consultancy for video games. So in recent years, I've been writing for Dying Light 2, Resident Evil Resistance. There's one that I'm still NDA on, so I can't tell you what I'm doing on that one. And the one that I am narrative director on at the moment as a consultancy is a game called Superfuse, which is an action RPG. It's a kind of dark superhero dungeon crawler with like amazing superpowers, a huge amount of customization. That's being published by Roll Fury. And you can find it on Steam at the moment. So Superfuse, check it out. It's a lot of fun. Great team I'm working with, really. And I just like the cartoon visuals of it. Like, oh, they're so good. They're so good.
Yeah, Raw Fury has a good hand for artsy art style visuals. Yeah.
Yeah, the visual style of it is it's like a comic book has come to life. It is, and I know there's a lot of games that have said that, but I think this one is closer than anything I've ever seen before. It's fantastic. It's really, if you like seeing cartoon style visuals, look up Superfuse. It's just the art team is just blowing it out of the park. It's incredible. Really good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of me. Yeah, big video game player. And I started off, because I think one of your questions usually is like, where did you begin, or what's the favorite?
Right.
Yeah. Well, my first ever gaming experience was with it wasn't an Atari, but it was an Atari clone, and it was like this. It's like it's probably about the same size as the Watchmen book, but it had like this wood veneer on it, and you had switches to choose which game you were going to play.
Yeah.
And it was just black and white, and you had could play Pong on it. We had a little light gun game on it. If you held the gun right up against the screen, it might register that you were actually shooting the dot. It was I don't even know who made it, but my first proper computer was the ZX Spectrum, which is a very British computer to have as your first one. But oh god, it was an amazing machine. And the stuff that those programmers got to work in 48K of memory, you know, that's like a fraction of a second of this stream right now is 48K.
Yeah, not even the frame is 48K. Yeah.
I remember getting to university and they were giving us training on how to use the computers, and I was like, yeah, I kind of know this bit. But they were like, okay, so is this how to use a scanner? So this screen is blank at the moment, so it's only 21K. And I was like, a white screen is 21K. Like the things I've played in 48K with graphics and story and text and all the sounds and all the visuals and the memories I have in my head of these 48K games, and it's taken 21K to draw a white screen. I was like, oh god, the programmers from those days, they must be not exactly spinning in their graves, but spinning on their way to retirement by now. But
yeah. Also, I think there's a very active community still developing games, right?
I think there are still a few old Spectrum developers making stuff. I know one of the developers, David Jones, who made the Magic Knight games. For actually, I think I released across a few different computers back then. And yeah, I think he's still been working, sort of picking away in the background to try and make a new one at some point. I don't know how far he's got with it. I need to check with him at some time.
I think there are quite a lot of developers for. Of course, somebody got Doom running on a ZX Spectrum and stuff like that, but there are also some new and innovative games. And I think the ZX Spectrum and the C64 are the most active retro community machines. Yeah.
I absolutely cherish my memories with the ZX Spectrum Plus 2, which put up to 128K and built in. No craziness. When I started playing these, I had a little had a TV which was probably about maybe a quarter of the screen size of the monitor I'm sitting in at the front of the room, and it was black and white. And I remember, I think it was around my 9th or 10th birthday, I got a tiny little color screen thing that I could plug into my Spectrum. It was so exciting to see the 8 colors that it could display at once. Ah, memories.
Yeah. So, do you had some, let's call it 8 or 16-bit computers where you were very fond
Yeah,
of?
yeah, definitely. So I went from the Spectrum Plus 2 up to the Mega Drive,
Mm-hmm.
the Sega Mega Drive, also known as the Genesis to American viewers. And I also had the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, the SNES as well. So those were. I personally, I know a lot of people are big Nintendo fans, and I'm probably going to thoroughly offend people by saying this, but it never did it for me. I don't know why. The Nintendo games. I mean, I respect the craft of them. I like Super Mario is a brilliantly designed game. And Super Mario Brothers. When I first saw that, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old or something, and I had a Japanese friend, and his family had just come over to work in the UK for a little while, and I played the Super Mario Brothers, and he showed me that like if you jump here, there's a secret just hidden in the middle of nowhere. I was like, oh my god! Like the programmers have put stuff in there that you can't see, and you just have to find through exploration. Oh my god, this is just so much, and the graphics and the color and the music. Oh, it was amazing. The feel of the character slipping and sliding,
Yeah.
but as I got older, I was like, yeah, it's cool, but it just doesn't quite do it for me. I don't know. I just find them so slick and well made that I almost miss the rough edges.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know quite what that is. I mean, I say that, but I've been playing God of War Ragnarok this last few days, and that is so incredibly slick, and I don't miss the rough edges at all. Oh my god, that game's so well made. Yeah, that's but yeah, so after that, then I moved on to PlayStation, and I've been I did get the GameCube as well, but once again, I mean, it's like I tried the GameCube because everyone says, "Oh God, this is amazing, and you should play this thing," and again, none of them quite gripped me. A friend of mine had the Sega Saturn,
Mm-hmm.
Res.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Rez just blew me away. I remember when I first went round to his house and he had good speakers and he'd set up like his little seat in front of the TV and just playing Rez. That was mind blowing. Still one of my favorite games ever. I think just Rez is it just transports you into the music in a way that no other game has done. I got the Res X or whatever it's called,
Mm-hmm.
the
PlayStation
one with the
4.
kind of and the upgraded stuff. And I've not tried it with PlayStation VR yet. That's kind of the only game I want to play with VR.
I tried it, and
is
it's really really good. Yeah.
yeah, I got a feeling it would be. So
Yeah.
I'm
You
looking
have to
forward.
try it.
Someday I will. Someday I will.
Yeah.
But I don't want to buy a whole VR kit just for that.
Yeah.
But
You can just visit me. I'll show it to you.
so yeah, so yeah, I mostly stuck with the PlayStation through the years. Picked up Xbox 360 and stuff like that. I've got Xbox One downstairs, but I have to say PlayStation has been my main go-to for games. I'm not much of a PC player. I do play some games on PC, but the comfort of sitting on your own sofa, it's a special thing.
Yeah. Also, the games will just run, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, if you could pick maybe 3 games for your visit on a lonely island.
I mean, I think one that really inspired me, and I think it was the one that actually first got me drawing maps for games, was a game called Dizzy.
Mm-hmm.
So Dizzy, it was on the Spectrum, it was on the Commodore. I think it was on a few other things as well
Yeah.
in the end, like Amstrad and things. So Dizzy was a 2D platformer puzzle game, and I think there was something. Actually, I only really realised this a few years ago when somebody else was asking about my favourite games, most influential games, and it combined so much that I'm passionate about now as well. That it had a sense of a world. I could probably draw you the map still in my head. There was the Crystal Mountains on one side with this mysterious statue on the top, and there were little scrolling text boxes, and there was a bit of poetry from a poem called Kubla Khan by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And it's like, why is that even there? It's just intriguing and interesting. And there was a graveyard, and you could go down the crazy. You could go this tree house, and there were secrets in there as well. And there was a little bit of a plot, not much of a plot. It was a kind of save the princess plot, which, let's face it, we've seen a lot of those over the years, and maybe it's time to move on. But it felt like exploring a whole world. And there was something else in the world that I found about that game that I think was very unique for the time, and actually stayed unique for a very long time, which was there was nothing there that was actually an enemy apart from the one final enemy, the wizard in the castle. Everything else was just bats being bats, ghosts being ghosts, water being water. It wasn't there weren't people hunting you. There was nothing to kill. I mean, yes, you could use the garlic to get rid of the vampire bats. So I suppose technically that was killing them, but it felt like you were exploring a world, and the world was just a little bit dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And compared to other games at the time, when it was just like shoot the thing, it was like the Robin Hood games where you have to shoot stuff with arrows, or there was Space Invaders where you have to shoot all the aliens, and Bomb Jack where you had to kind of defuse all these bombs or blow stuff. It always. Commando was another big one, and there was a lot of very hyper masculine, violent games around. And Dizzy, you played as an egg with boxing gloves, solving puzzles in a world that was just doing its thing, and it felt very unique at the time. And that combination of a real world feeling setting, a place to properly explore, great puzzles, and a bit of narrative about it. I think that really inspired me. More quickly going through other ones. Oh God, what would I go for? I think the first Tomb Raider. I do love third-person action games. I think the first Tomb Raider really, that just put me in love with that genre. I think. Number 3. I had a damn good time with a split-screen co-op game called Crackdown on the Mega Drive. Not a particularly famous one, but it was a split screen game co-op, and it was just great fun. I think most of it was viewed top down. In fact, maybe all of it was viewed top down, and you just had to go across this map shooting stuff. And it's a bit like Smash TV, I think, in the controls, if you remember Smash TV.
Mm-hmm.
But I like kind of co-op games. I really enjoyed those.
Yeah.
These days I'm big on single player stuff, but I do like a good co-op.
Yeah.
You don't get as many just pure co-op. It's either big multiplayer or single player. Not so many co-op games anymore. So I miss those. And Crackdown just popped into my head. Probably haven't thought about it for years, but that definitely sticks with me.
Good. So I think we have basically the same age. So I think we can talk about a lot of old games and stuff like that. But let's start with the introduction to immersion. And the Wikipedia technical definition is: immersion is an act of fully submerging something within another. This can be done through books, movies, or video games. Also, it describes something immersing something into water or other media. So an object immerge into media. So that's basically immersion. And I think it's a term that I always use. I could use different other terms, like the German word for submerging or stuff like that. But I always come back to immersion because it means so much more to me. It means getting sucked into something, not just getting put into something. It means for me getting sucked into a game or a book, or sometimes it's even an what's it called? A music CD or stuff like that. So it's not even limited to video games. I think most of us think so.
Yeah, I think so. And I think all video game players, or people who just enjoy this kind of, people who enjoy creative output, media, entertainment experiences. I think we all know what it's like to watch a film and go, wow, that felt like a really quick film, and it turns out it was like almost a 3-hour epic,
Yeah.
but it was so good.
Yeah.
You were so in the moment with those characters that you've lost track of time, and that's often one of those things that is kind of considered a characteristic of being immersed, is that you've lost awareness of perhaps your physical surroundings slightly, or you've lost awareness of time passing.
Yeah.
Um, these are kind of the things that characterize the sense of being immersed in something.
Yeah. Right.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah. I also get that sometimes while working out, riding a bike or jogging or stuff like that, or even cooking, but I have to admit it's more fun with books or movies or video games. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very similar to a trance state, and people kind
Yeah.
of think of trance states as like hypnosis, but actually we, as human beings, we have multiple trance states that we use regularly. So, for example, if you, I live in the Netherlands now, and it's fairly common to cycle places, and if you do a route very often, at some point you will get to your destination and go, I don't actually remember
Yeah.
cycling here.
Yeah.
And you can't decide whether I've probably been cycling more safely than usual, because I'm so into the state of like, I need to do everything and check everything and make sure, and it's become so completely automatic to do that I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not distracted from anything except cycling, or I'm in much more danger because I'm not paying attention to the road. I don't know.
Me neither, but I get the same while driving to work or stuff like that. So
Yeah, very
I
cool.
tell my wife I'm completely on autopilot and forgot to buy the groceries and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and so trance states are they're very normal. They're perfectly average function of the human psychology, and it's just us getting completely into doing something to the point that we kind of lose track, like I say, of perhaps our physical space or distractions outside of that one activity that we're involved with. So I think that immersion, what we might think of as an entertainment media thing, it's a state that we can reach from many different things, like cooking, as you mentioned earlier. But I think it's one that we enjoy a lot. We get a lot of pleasure from being immersed in media,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. And this is not just a binary state that is for everyone the same. It's different for everyone. Everyone gets immersed differently and into different medias or activities. So
Mm.
when we talk about the different types of immersion, I prepared some examples, but you all should keep in mind that are my examples. So you probably will have other examples, and we both would love to know about your examples. So if you will, you can put them into the chat, and we can talk after we finish with my examples.
Yes. I can't see the chat at the moment, so I'm going to rely on you to pass on
Yeah,
any interesting
I
ones.
will. I will. Okay. So, you tried to read through all the papers and tried to summarize the data, the knowledge of immersion into 4 categories, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So to give a little bit of background on this, so obviously I've been working at BUas for it's 12 years now, and I've worked with literally hundreds of game teams in that. Most of them students, but a fair number of professional teams as well. And I pre-pandemic, I used to go to a lot of conferences and have a lot of conversations with game designers. And one thing that I encountered in a vast amount of conversations was this word immersion. And the thing that became very clear to me very quickly was that everybody meant something a little bit different, and it was actually it actually became quite hard to have, particularly because I'm talking to developers.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking to players, it doesn't matter so much. If everybody says, oh, I found it really immersive, you kind of go, oh, cool, that's really good. But if you're talking to a developer and they say, yeah, we want to make a very immersive game, And I'm like, well, what's in your head for immersive might be different from what's in their head for the immersive. And if your producer has got a third version of what's in their head for immersive, your production schedule is going to go somewhere else and you're not going to get the focus you need. So we actually need to work out what we're saying when we say this word immersion. What does immersive mean to you? And through thinking about this a lot, and as you say, reading lots of other articles to see what other people were saying and how people were using this, and talking to a lot of game developers, I broke it down into basically these 4 categories. Now, something that's worth emphasizing is that I don't think any single game is just one category. And also the same game could work completely differently. Like somebody might be completely systems immersion in that game, and somebody else is going to feel it completely like empathic social immersion for that game. And they might disagree about it completely. But it's just a way of kind of beginning to embody a little bit how this all comes together, how this like, you know, how do you think of immersion in your own head? Because then when you talk about a design choice, or when you talk about an art choice or a narrative choice, when you're developing a game, at least people understand what you're trying to achieve with that choice. So there are these 4 types that I'm going to be talking about here, and I wrote about in the paper. If you want to Google
I have a bot command for your paper. I hope
perfect. There we
go.
go.
There it is. So there's a link to your paper in the chat.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so I wrote the paper. I could do like super academic language. I didn't want to do super academic language. I wanted this to be something very accessible to developers. So I wrote this with a nice, neat little sort of 1-page intro at the beginning, and then it's hopefully quite a readable paper. So if you're interested in the fuller ideas of this, go dig it out and tell people or whatever. But yeah, so we've got these 4 types of immersion: systems immersion, spatial immersion, empathic social immersion, and narrative sequential immersion. Let's go through those one by one, and we'll kind of talk about what they mean.